JSW investment, MG's got a new lease of life.
This platform could actually be tailored to India.
Big bang, a big, let's say, model blitz which MG is planning.
Mr. Jindal, I remember he said, we want to do a Maruti moment with plugins.
They want to talk of being 1 million cars by 2030. That's the ambition. Hello and welcome to another edition of Deep Drive, our weekly podcast where we talk about all things automotive. We talk about the companies, the people behind them, and of course, the products. And speaking of products, this week we're going to be talking about MG's future products, which has been featured in our latest issue. We suggest you subscribe to the magazine. Go to autocarindia.com, click on the subscribe link because there's a lot of info in here and every month you'll be kept up to date as well. But coming back to the magazine, we are looking at MG's new innings. And talking to me about this, I have with me Sergius Barretto, our managing editor. Sergius, I think with the JSW investment, MG's got a new lease of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of opened the gates that were put up, as we know, thanks to our sort of political tension with China. They were, held back. And it's really sad because if you look back at MG entering India, I mean, you've I think written a lot about it as well. They've had a fantastic start. Right?
I think it was a copybook start. Honestly, the way they launched the brand, there was skepticism about being a Chinese brand, but they very cleverly positioned it as British. In fact, a lot of customers didn't think it was Chinese. They thought it was British. They kind of kept, flying that British flag on the products. And I think really the way it was launched and even the team. In fact, I think, Rajiv Chhabra, who actually launched the brand, I mean, he headed it with a good team around him. I think, done an outstanding job. And no surprise, he was our man of the year. So I think that I think is, it just shows the kind of leadership MG had to get to where it was. But then clearly, lack of investment started hurting them quite badly.
Yeah, I mean, even the product selection, Hormazd, I mean, they went into SUVs, which was, I think, a smart move, right? They didn't really chase, let's say, hatchbacks or sedans.
In fact, I remember Rajiv Chhabra telling me that, initially the plan was to do a hatchback and produce 70,000 of them and to take on Maruti. And I think at that point, he put his foot down and said, if you're doing that, I'm not part of this gig. And I think really their first product, the Hector, really was in a sweet spot. And if you look at it, Hector still has its own kind of fan following. I mean, the engines, the petrol engine, not great. It's a gas guzzler.
Right.
Diesel is good, Fiat diesel, but it doesn't have an auto. But otherwise, people find it a very compelling product for the city. In fact, I would say it is probably one of the best chauffeur-driven cars because you've got a super spacious backseat. It's not too high by SUV standards, and the ride is quite soft.
Flat floor at the rear.
Exactly. So if you want to be chauffeur-driven, I would say the Hector is one of the best products to be chauffeur-driven in. But clearly, I think, the others haven't been as successful. Astra, not that great. MG ZSEV had a good start, but I guess they haven't been able to get the numbers. And, nowhere near Nexon and Comet. I just think the two doors don't work in India.
Right. Two doors, and I think the tiny wheels too, because somehow people associate tiny wheels with the rickshaw, I think.
I know. The Comet is a bit comic that way. Yeah, but I think, exactly. So
they need a product update, a full refresh, right? I mean, clearly.
I think so. And I think, what's happened with JSW, I think it's interesting to note that, for the first time we've had, let's say, an entrepreneur coming into the car space, with kind of having a majority shareholding, or let's say significant shareholding, because clearly the MG is going to be diluted to a minority shareholder. They will be supplying fundamentally the technology and the products. But I think what it does is it's opened the floodgates, as you said, to a vast range of products over here. So let's talk a little bit about the products which we've kind of scooped in this issue. I think we saw the Cyberster, which was there at the big announcement and the launch with the Jindals and, Rajiv Chhabra. And of course, that was kind of the real showcase. It's like their flagship product in that sense. Lovely looking car.
True.
And I think we've got a whole a bunch of others. Yeah, we've got this cloud coming in, Sergius. I think that has potential because, it could be priced well. I think it could be a great fleet product.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the Cloud, it's part of the two MPVs that are coming, the Bingo Plus and the Cloud. It's an MPV. They call it an MPV. It's maybe a hatchback. But the best way to describe this would be it's like the Jazz, the Honda Jazz.
You're talking about the Bingo Plus.
The smaller one. Right. So it's got the right proportions. It gives you the flexibility. It's pretty. I would say pretty unique, because I think after the Jazz, which didn't set the sales chart afire, but it had its own fan following, the Jazz, and I think after that there's not been a product like that. And this formula could work actually. A lot of space. It's only 5 seats. In fact, both the Bingo Plus and the Cloud, they're both 2-row MPVs only. It's not a 3-row. So that would be interesting actually, Hormazd, because in India, people tend to associate MPV with 3 rows. The third row has to be there. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, do you think that would be a little bit of an issue for lack of a third row?
Well, I think they would see it as a car. I think the Cloud would be great for fleet operators. I think clearly that's and I think it would be well priced. I think they're looking at really having it very attractively priced. I think under 20 lakhs is something they would look at. Bingo Plus, I think, is still some ways away, because still it's just in left-hand drive form.
Right.
It's going to be right-hand drive.
Left-hand drive.
It'll go to Indonesia and then it'll come here. So maybe that'll be another 2 years down the road.
Right.
But I think the Cloud will be coming this year. That will be very interesting. And I think it will come with a little bit more confidence, with the kind of new innings with JSW. But I think the one to really look out for, and I think what we've written about, is this all-new EV platform that they're developing. Next generation, cutting edge. It's not even out globally anywhere yet.
True.
But we've got to know of it. So that platform is going to have a Civic size sedan. It's going to have an Innova size MPV. So, you talked about just 2 rows.
Third row. Yeah.
They're going to have a 3-row one, which will be an Innova size. And of course, they'll have a Hector sized SUV on top of that. It may not be an SUV. I mean, it may not be called the Hector, but it will be an SUV, and all of them are electric. So I think electric is really where their strength is.
And I think the good part for that, Hormazd, is the timing is perfect, because SAIC, the MG owners, they were investing in this platform at about the same time as the JSW partnership. So this platform could actually be tailored to India, or at least sort of India could heavily influence its development, which has not been the case with the past MG products.
No, that's a very good point, actually. I think, the minute a country is in the program from inception, clearly, a few nuances for that country are packaged into the product. It's much easier doing it that way than doing some retro engineering, which never works. It's costlier and it's always compromised. So I think that's something which I'm sure the designers and engineers will be looking at. I think in India, clearly, the backseat is important. But to be honest, it's very important in China as well. You have all the long wheelbase cars. So I think Chinese requirements and tastes and Indian requirements, there is a bit of a match, at least for size and the rear seat space.
I was just going to say that, at least for size, not for styling.
Yeah. Style is absolutely. I think our tastes are more European in that way. But, I think it's such a personal thing.
Yeah.
So that's how it is. So I think, so I think that's the product I think will really be one to watch out for. I think it'll take about two years to come out.
Yeah, but before that, there's also another product which has got your name on it, actually, the HS or the EHS.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like plug-in hybrid. And we have to discuss that, because it's tech that I think everyone is kind of writing off. They're saying, okay, hybrids you can do, but plug-in hybrid, if you're going to do a plug-in, if you're going to look for a wall outlet, you might as well go electric. Right, so that's one line of thought. Rajiv Chaba was just saying to me, he says, no. But the other line of thought is, I have 2 cars in one. On certain days I can go with the electric because I'm going to the office. Or today I'll take the ICE or the hybrid, and they both happen to be the same car. What do you think? Where will the Indian consumer see a plug-in hybrid?
Well, I mean, firstly, I just want to talk about the EHS, which I think a plug-in hybrid, that's what the technology they have.
Mm-hmm.
If there is some relaxation on hybrid taxes, which there's talk of it happening, we don't know if it will happen. That could be one big benefit for hybrids. And of course, SAIC pushing plug-in hybrids a lot. But to be honest, I'm not a fan of plug-in hybrids because I think it will be misused because for one, you don't have to plug in. And it's so inconvenient right now, even with an EV plugging in, that with a plug-in hybrid where you don't have to plug in. I mean, EV you have to, you don't plug in, you'll be stuck.
You're stuck, yeah.
But here you've got the engine. I think consumers, and this has happened even globally, even in the US, even in the UK, the consumer tends to run on the ICE engine more than even the plug-in. In fact, there have been cases where people have bought a plug-in hybrid and the charging cable hasn't even been taken out of its original packing. It's just packed like that. So, that really is misusing what it's meant for. And when you use it only on ICE, the ICE engine is smaller, so it works harder and the emissions are much higher. Mm-hmm. The ideal balance is having, using a plug-in hybrid for what it is as an electric vehicle for a limited range. And, now the range has improved. You can go about 50, 100 Ks. But it's such a hassle we found plugging in over here. That people
so they're using it only as a strong hybrid, like a non-plug-in strong hybrid. That's what
but the strong hybrid, it charges itself in any case,
right?
So I think over here it's you're relying on
but the battery being larger, yes, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
like it's not geared up to
exactly. Yeah. It doesn't have that same cycling of using the ICE to charge it, discharge it. That's what.
Yeah.
But again, coming back, I think MG has the technology. On the electrified space, plug-in technology, EV technology, they don't have good old ICE engines. So, move to flex fuel, CNG, I don't know how they're going to manage that because right now their engines which they have, which is fundamentally a 1.5 petrol, it's not a great engine. As we know,
true, yeah.
It really guzzles gas.
Yeah, I think no one likes no fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly smooth, but it's really not a great engine, that turbo petrol. But I think
even the diesel, I mean, it's the Fiat one, yes, it's aged now. I think it's not the class best in terms of its refinement, or efficiency, or any of the parameters for that example. It does the job, and
it is. And as we know, diesel, however much you and I may like them, and I do like diesel, they have a limited future to it. I don't see that Fiat engine staying beyond 26, 27. In fact, there's talk of Bosch stopping to make some of the parts for it. That's a rumor. Yeah, exactly. So eventually, as we've said in our stories, that hybrid is the new diesel.
Right.
I think that would be replaced by some sort of hybrid powertrain. And I think hybrid is going to go forward, and I think that way, MG and SAIC are well placed to, give that technology.
I was just going to talk about the EHS, the product itself. It's an SUV. They call it an SUV, but again, it's a crossover kind of styling. How well do you think that would be accepted here? Do you think? I know we're getting full coupe SUVs as well in the mid segment now, like the Curve, for example, the Citroen Basalt, but. Do you think the EHS would bed in well as a SUV?
Well, I think, I think it looks quite good. In fact, it's a little bit more proportional than even the Hector, which was quite boxy and, the wheels look small. So I think it looks pretty good. I think, it's probably at the end of its life cycle. We might see a newer one by the time they decide to launch it over here. And you never know, they could kind of, they changed the look of the Hector just for India. They gave it that high bonnet. So it was, I think the Maujin 530, which it was, which they gave a higher bonnet to that. And so they could do the same with the EHS as well. But yeah, I think again, it'll be pricey. But talking about, pricey and going up market, they are looking at doing a kind of a premium channel.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's, I have to say, I've even written some columns about it in Autocar. When Maruti did that with the Nexa, I didn't think it was such a great strategy because, you've got two pipelines to feed life cycle management. Now you're one company, one development, but, two sort of arms. But they made it work. And I think MG obviously have noticed and probably are thinking of doing a premium channel for the same brand. I mean, it's, of course, there are everyone who does dual brands like a Toyota, Lexus. But I think the same brand but two channel thing is a risky move. But MG could pull it off, and I see why they're doing it, because you have the Comet, you've got the Hector, and then you're going to have the Cyberster, which we know they are fans of. The Jindals too are fans of, apparently. So when we do have a right-hand drive, I suppose it will come here.
Yeah, I think the Cyberster will come. I think they even have the IM, which we know, is going to be a So that's also going to be.
So they did rebadge the IM Hormazd. You think
I think it'll all be under the MG badge. I think just the way it was with Nexa. It'll get too confusing otherwise. And either to launch a completely new brand at this stage, when to be honest, MG isn't strong enough. I think these would feed into the MG brand. It's just that I think it's a right strategy to not sell it in the same showroom as, like the Comet and Aster and Hector, which are more mass. And I'm sure, if they give a great, premium experience to it. I think one thing is that, people buying an EV, they're more, in a way, experimental. So I think they'd be more open to buying an MG, even if it's around 50, 60 lakhs, which is the Cyberster is. But it will be very interesting to see whether MG uses the import route or does a CKD of it. Because the duty is the same. Even with CKD, they could get 15%. And I think with CKD, it's, I think it's for the Indian market, there are less variables to deal with. When you start importing, it's a little bit more complicated. It requires longer lead. But when you're doing a CKD, I think it's, you're more in control. So it remains to be seen. I think we all know they've got that the new EV policy is great for fresh investments. You invest more than $500 million and, you can import EVs with just 15% duty up to, let's say, up to above $35,000.
Right.
So these all fit into that.
Correct.
But yeah, it remains to be seen what they do. But I think clearly there's a huge, big bang, a big, let's say, model blitz, which MG is planning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably, I think, the certainly in India history, the most extensive product refresh, and probably across brands, because nobody comes in with this sort of, speed and sort of a rush almost. It seems like a big rush. I mean, I know the Chinese are known to do things, in a jiffy. They get stuff done fast, while the Europeans will still be, analyzing all of their various parameters and things like that. But this would be massive. I mean, have we ever seen a scale like this?
I think we have. I mean, to be honest, Maruti is doing a lot. Hyundai is doing a lot. They all have big plans. But obviously, I think, don't forget, you've had about 3 years of no investment, a little bit of lull. So it's all kind of pent up over there. These plans have been in the offing, and they've constantly been planning how to launch it. I think they've really been struggling with capacity. Even with Halol, they've been unable to expand capacity. They're scouting around for another plant. They nearly bought the Ford plant, but that didn't happen. So I think definitely the plans are big. I think they want to talk of being 1 million cars by 2030. That's the ambition. I think a pretty high ambition. And actually, what that leads me to is, the promoters, very dynamic, I think very ambitious. And from what I understand, Sajjan Jindal is a very fast learner, asking the right questions, very, very focused on costs, which is the right thing to do. But I think at the end of the day, they need the right automotive people to guide them, because they have been traditionally in a B2B business. They've never been B2C. And I think handling customers, handling dealers, it's very nuanced, is very people-centric. So I think, you've got these kind of slight nuances which you have to manage. And the key would be to get people with deep automotive experience to run this. And more than that, finally to listen to them and take on board what they're saying.
No, absolutely, you're right, actually. Like you said, I mean, at the launch itself or the announcement, Mr. Jindal, I remember he said, we want to do a Maruti moment with plugins, like how Maruti did for fuel-efficient cars. So, I mean, the ambition is there, and to publicly state this, I mean, it was also very refreshing to see, because not very often you see, brand CEOs talk of another brand or even say the word out of their mouth. So I was quite happy to see that. It's a refreshing the interview as well. And do you think that the plugins though would create that Maruti moment? Because as he says, out of those million, they want. Well, I think what was it? 40% or something they want of NEVs, as they call them,
new energy
vehicles.
But that's basically EVs. That'd be
EVs.
So I think clearly their play is going to be with electrified vehicles,
right,
and mainly with EVs themselves. I think plugins would be a smaller proportion of it. But yeah, as you said, very refreshing. I think what's exciting is that after a long time we've had an entrepreneur in the four-wheeler space. We've had them in the two-wheeler space, and you can see all those companies are doing well.
Yeah.
Whether it's Hero, whether it's Bajaj, whether it's TVS, whether it's Enfield. If you look at it, it's the entrepreneurs running it. But we've not had that really in the four-wheeler space. With Tata Motors, you had Ratan Tata at one point really leading it, but he's retired. You had Anand Mahindra also very much, but he's kind of stepped back. So it's a lot more corporate right now.
And they've always been corporates.
That's right. But I think with the Jindals coming in, both Sajjan and his son Parth, they come in with a fresh look. Undoubtedly very, very dynamic, but inexperienced in this field as well. So I think the trick really will be to gain experience fast, not to bite off more than you can chew. I think, just be focused on one thing at a time. And clearly they've got the resources, they've got the appetite, they've got, let's say the will to do it. And, in SAIC, they could have a great partner. So I think, it is something for the industry to sit up and be worried about.
Actually, yeah.
It is.
Complementary strengths.
That's true. But, you've still got companies like Maruti, Hyundai are so well entrenched in there. They're like a fortress. So, to kind of, get close to them will be tough. But, competition is good. It's good for everyone.
Yeah, it's good for the consumer. So
absolutely. Yeah, that's great. So I think on that note, with, very exciting products coming from the MG stable, I think it's going to be good times for the consumer, because what consumer will be getting are good products at good prices and with the latest tech. So that's it from us on this episode of Deep Drive. Keep watching and tune in again next Saturday at 11 a.m.